Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I know the footage looks a little blurry. This isn't actually my footage, it's actually from the community. Now, if you want to submit your footage, I have my email on screen that you can submit footage for VOD reviewing from the community. What's interesting about this footage though, is this comes from somebody from the comment section who then emailed me. I wanted to let you guys know I really truly read the comment section. It's very important to me, especially when you guys are asking for tips, advice. And I do my best. I can't always get to everyone's comment, but in some circumstances, it turns into a video, and I think this is really, really important. So this individual, I'll share the email. I'm not going to share their actual email, but what they said in their email specifically, because I think it's important. I think we can learn a lot. There's a lot of frustration here about playing for over 800 hours of Apex Legends and still feeling like they're not understanding the gist and perhaps they're missing something that can help them really improve. That's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to highlight the mistakes that they made whenever they got eliminated. Then we're going to go in the test range and break those things down on how they can improve. And maybe this can help somebody else out there. I know I can't get to everybody, but my goal is hopefully you might share a similar experience as this individual that can help you improve in the game. So let's get into it. All right, now I'm going to VOD review. There's 3 different rounds that he submitted. It was about 30 minutes of footage, but we're going to highlight the most important things. First, on the bottom left of the screen here, we can see that he still hasn't healed. Now, the biggest thing, and that really slowed you down, is you got to play with your squad. Your squad's actually pretty far behind. Let's say this team was actually a lot closer and looked for you and had a seer, and they looked down, you actually would have gotten eliminated and would be pretty far from your team. That is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is that you still have yet to heal. Let's look at this: 5 seconds, 10, 20, 30. So it took you about 25 seconds to decide to heal, and even the footage beforehand, it was a little longer. This is quite a large amount of time before you decided to heal. Now, unfortunately, your Vantage went up ahead and decided to leave without you. Knowing your Legend's ability is very, very important in walls you can scale. If you're going to play Revenant, understand the walls that you can scale and you cannot scale. This costed you a lot of time and you were separate from your team for an extended period of time. You definitely could have taken the zip and gone up a lot faster than scaling the wall and using up your climb. So the scan actually went out here. So if you look at the scan here, we see that it looks like an individual has been knocked. Maybe 2. It's a little hard to tell from that angle, but that means that you should be playing with your squad. There's a few things that you hesitated here, is that you noticed that they were shooting here on the left and that confused you, but your focus should have been over on the opponent over on the right, because that was a bleed out. Now you're scaling this tree here, and unfortunately if you're going to scale the tree, remember that you saw the opponents on the scan on the right, and so your teammate went in, but they went in without you. You should be up on your teammate. So I want to backtrack here 10 seconds. This is very important. If you know they're on the roof of the building and you have your teammate, you always push together, even if the person might have their back turned to you. Now you're going for a 1v1 here, and now there's a few things to highlight on the 1v1, is that you need to use your teammate's knockdown shield. You should be actually healing. Your teammate actually needs to go for the encounter here and finish up the Octane. The reason why is that they're full HP. You can ping back up and use a battery and heal up. You never go right for this the 1v1 afterwards, because you don't necessarily know if they have a Mastiff, if they're going to one-tap you and you're just going to lose that fight. So we see here next is that the teammate decided to reset. You actually could have reset it in this scenario as well to bait them. So there's a lot of different opportunities here. Let's say once they dropped, let's go back here and let's assess the situation. And this all has to be in the moment. They drop res immediately, or here res. So there's 5 seconds you didn't res, 10 seconds, and that's when you got eliminated. But that bait actually could have caused him to come right back and fight. Or you could have healed and used a knockdown shield as protection as well. So remember, there's a lot that can happen in these scenarios that can really help you improve, that are extremely vital. Because you're pinging now, remember the information that's given to you and act upon that information. Don't get distracted. Always go first and foremost. Let's go to the next clip. Now let's talk about this clip, where information is key. So the information that has been provided to you, sometimes you actually know what you're doing in terms of positioning. We talked about that, and you mentioned that you understand the head glitches and hitbox and everything, but it's your decision of when you decide to go for the encounter that gets you eliminated. So and I'm going to go in the test range after this. I want to highlight how you can use more of the head glitch a little bit more effectively and quickly. So right here, once your teammate gets cracked, the information that's being provided to you is this individual has been low HP. What is the first thing they do? Is that they run. Yes, your teammate is on the right, but they're not fully engaged in the encounter. There's 2 things you can do here now that I have this pause. You can calm your teammate to push, I'm going in, or you can back up with your horizon and let this individual go for the flank. Right now, you have a lot of your body fully exposed. You can actually hug this geometry a bit closer, but you went for a 2v1 scenario here. Whenever you push and you don't have information, there's the question marks going up in your head, then you do not push, because if you push and you have question marks, that's when you get eliminated. Don't worry, I make this mistake all the time on stream too. You'll hear me say, oh, I shouldn't have gone for that, or oh man, I can't believe I pushed that. That probably wasn't the best push. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump a little further ahead, because you did get this squad wipe, and it was helpful that at least you went in and did a little damage. Your Octane could have pushed a lot sooner, and you could have backed up at the horizon to avoid getting knocked, because again, you never want to go for a 2v1 scenario, and especially if you get eliminated, that's not ideal. So let's skip ahead. Now, before I cut to the test range, I'm going to use this as an example. So we're going to cover both the example of how you cut the geometry a little better and quicker, And as well as the biggest tip that has a major flaw here is you never push from low ground. So if you do push from low ground, you do have the jump pad to kind of get in, and you see that somebody's getting rezzed here, so I understand why you could have gone for this push, and they queue away. Now, remember the information that once they queue away and you get your knock, there's no reason to fully engage on this anymore. This is not the best spot, and so you should be rotating over to the left to avoid the encounter and the fight. Or if your Horizon uses the Q, then you take the Q to go up. You also have the opportunity to use your Revenant ultimate here to kind of push forward to see if you can make an aggro push. That's definitely an option. So when you assess your what's going on, and actually you do use the ult. So if you go forward, let's see what you do here in the ult, and let's assess whether this was a good push or not. So you're going for the left, which is correct. This is fantastic, by the way. I think this is great. I think you keep going. You keep going over to the left if you need to, and if it doesn't work, you don't go right underneath, because the problem that I saw next is you go underneath on the right. Your natural instinct to go over on the left was the correct way to go into this encounter, because even though you're Revenant and you can queue up, the problem is that you need to go over on the left side, because otherwise you're gonna pretty much get caught out. Which is, let's see, now they have the high ground. Even if you try to push them, you're just at a losing standstill here. So whenever you get to this spot over here, this is where you need to go. You need to calm to your teammates to back up or push more effectively with them. This is, I know you're playing with randoms as well, and that can be also very frustrating when you're playing with randoms and they don't know what you need to do. And additionally, a lot of what I saw in your gameplay is you tend to dead slide a lot. You need to wait until you get momentum, put your gun away consistently so you can maximize on your momentum. That can also help a lot. Your natural instinct is always correct. I want to highlight that consistently of what you're doing here. So that's always a positive. And also when you're looking at the kill feed of what's going on, that's also very important information. So you going on the left is so key here, and that's what I'm highlighting, because your natural instinct is correct. Go around that route again and try to get an angle, because knowing that you're going to fight from the low ground is not going to be good. So let's go in the test range now. Let's discuss that. Okay, when you are on the stairs, the biggest thing is to make sure that you're reaching as much of the curve as possible to keep your hitbox small. The problem is that if you overextend a little bit, then your hitbox is much larger. And you always want to have a nice solid crouch spam that's going back and forth. So of course, if you do that, what it's going to look like is that it'll look like this. Let's get the other POV. If you move up a little too much, look how much of your body is exposed. But if you back up and you have that right amount with the hitbox, then you can duck and weave a lot more effectively and make it harder. So I'm the easier target to hit. This one is the much harder target to hit. So make sure that you're doing that a lot more fluidly. And if you know that there's another person there, then immediately you need to get out and use your movement to reposition, to make yourself a harder target to hit. The biggest advice I see with your movement is that you run out with your gun way too much like this. And I see a lot of, maybe I would call it more strict movement where it's not as fluid. Your focus should always be fluidity. So if you're going to run, make sure your gun is out a little bit and moves a little. You see how it moves a little bit? Then you slide jump. The problem is that you're not waiting for the movement and you dead slide quite a bit, and you have a little bit of a botch movement. If you're trying to reposition and get away and then climb, you need to put away your gun. You're going to get so much increased movement, and you need, every second really matters, and that's the theme of this video, is that if you don't have that time on your favor, then you're going to miss out and potentially on a win. Now, you're commented down below, and I'm going to put it back on screen here again, why it feels like you were losing. Why would you not just put your full body out? Now, the problem is that most individuals will peek, because this is the best peek you could possibly have, and your head is peeking out, right? Now, if you do it slowly, then it kind of defeats the purpose. Now, if I put my little decoy here, and I want to show you what it looks like versus the other target here. Now, if they beam you and they happen to land that headshot and you're a really small target, now if he's ducking and weaving like this, it makes it much harder to hit. And then he peeks up and then does like a quick shot. You need to work on your quick shots. That's where you get the power in. Now, if you do a quick shot and he hits you immediately, man, kudos to that guy. That guy's just insane. That even pro players have trouble hitting a target that small, that's ducking and weaving and peeking up and down really, really fast. Now, if you look at it from the other POV, and I put my little dummy here, and there's somebody wide swinging. Let's say what they do is they wide swing like this. Their whole body is exposed. This should be easy to land shots on. Should be. Quote unquote. It may not always be easy, but it should be easy. Let's say like you know their body and they're peeking out like this, right? And you know what they're doing? Boom, you go for the peek. Use your crouch as you peek to go for it, because you can hide immediately. They will not finish you if you peek quickly. If you peek quickly, then you can go in and you'll be just fine. And their whole body is exposed. The only thing they can do is slide right back. Even if you miss the headshot, you might be able to get a chest shot. They have to hit such a small target. Now let's talk about again from the height, right? You never want to be in a scenario where you're trying to climb up or push up to height. You can use utility to work your way in. Let's say it was Wraith and wanted to reposition and get in. That's a way to do it, right? An option for you. So if I were to pop my Q and I wanted to push aggressively and a Horizon Q next to me and a Valkyrie is taking height, this is a way to close the gap. Ideally, what you want to do is you never put yourself on a low ground. If you have the option, let's say you wanted to cut over to the left. Let's say you backed up a little bit and then hid and then healed a little and then you went back. Use your geometry and be very, very secure in what you're doing. Let's say they hit you, well, they would have to give up height to push you, right? But at that point, you should be on equal footing right over here. And look how much other bodies are exposed now. GG's. This is what you need to do. So when we look at Olympus and that one clip, this is so important on making the fight as easy as possible rather than making it difficult. So what we're going to do now is we're going to segue to the last bit of footage that you submitted to me. And I really think this will help a lot of people. It's about double timing it. It's about making sure that you're putting a lot of effort in. Everyone I've ever coached or even made videos like this on is that you guys all have the right idea and you guys can do this, but it's sometimes just trimming down the seconds in between the thought process, and that just takes a lot of time and a lot of practice and understanding what to do, because you know what to do when you break down the VOD. And look at your VOD and be brutally honest with yourself. If you're looking at the VOD, you're not being critical. Let me give an example. When you're watching a streamer, you can personally see their mistakes, right? Do that with your own gameplay, and I promise you're going to improve. Let's go to the last bit of footage here. Now, as we wrap up the video, I want to highlight here why it's so important to be very confident in your positioning and what you plan to do next. It is so important, and if you're not confident in climbing geometry, you got to practice it. You have to know these things that need to be so second nature that you don't even second guess them. The problem that I see a lot of with your footage is that you second guess yourself and you don't fully commit to the mistake or the right option. It's actually better for you to commit to the mistake, because then you know blatantly it was a mistake. So your heals here are perfectly fine because your teammate does push in, you go in right after. But again, you were prioritizing for some reason when I look there, the nade on the ground. You're supposed to be fighting. Always do one or the other. Don't try to choose in between and say, oh, I'm going to loot, because your teammate needs your help. What if that teammate took an extra 50 damage and you got third party? Focus on the main task at hand. And so this footage really clearly highlights what I would call more mistakes on being secured on what you plan on doing next. So let's skip a little bit ahead in what I mean. And when you think you have cover versus when you don't. So this is a team that is starting to third party from the distance. So this is good. You're shooting this out because that's something that you should be doing. Now, you know where the enemy team is at, but you back away from the position. You stop putting pressure. And I question why you stop putting pressure. This is great pressure. You could have been here a few seconds earlier and caught them out. You move a little bit forward. You got the knock. You should be resetting. You reset here and you have the grenade indicator in the back. For some reason, you don't back out from this scenario. If they had higher ground here, you actually are being exposed here. You see where if they can see you, if you can see them, they can see you. That's really, really important. And right now, because you're taking this extra bit of time, one, you could be rezzing and you could have backed up and saved yourself some time. And because they managed to push in, you weren't holding that angle for your teammate either. So now no matter what, this is a losing scenario. You're not going to be able to win this scenario any which way you look about it. So when we go back and we assess a few seconds, you had the right idea here. Now you need to hold and put pressure. Go immediately to the right and go put pressure. But you do it later. You do it later here. This was the right selection that you needed to do. So once you did the pressure here and they got the knock, don't move forward at this point. They're knocked. Back up, back up, back up, back up. I was screaming, back up and reposition and help your teammates and hold the angle. You took unnecessary damage here. This was a lot of damage you shouldn't have taken. Again, just assessing. And then your teammate went down because they got shot from a different angle, but you could have been there for them. So there's a lot of angles that you always need to watch for your teammates, and it's very, very important. Even if they're randoms, you can watch at angles that they're being shot from because you've already could have had this angle. It's so important and so key, even with randoms. Look at your mini map. See where people are doing, and always go with your first assessment, because you're always right. I see you're always right in your footage, and you should be commended for that. And shout out to you for always having that right thought process. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe if this is any way helpful. Comment down below if you want your footage reviewed, and also submit it via email. I'll see you guys all in the next video.